I'm going to go on the record as saying that is a moonbeam wacky theory that you want to prosecute people creating jobs and producing energy for murder. Let me ask you, Mr. Arkush, how did you get to the Capitol today?
So here's what I want to tell you.
How did you get to the Capitol today?
I took an Uber.
You took an Uber.
Yep.
Now, was that in an automobile?
Yes.
Did that automobile have gasoline in it?
Yes. This is very, very cute. I see where this is going.
So I'm glad you think it's cute. Under your theory, you emitted carbon emissions.
Yep.
Should you be arrested in this room right now and prosecuted for murder?
No.
Why?
That's not what the law holds.
So tell me why, because you're willing to say the guy who sold you the gasoline should be prosecuted for murder. You're the one that benefited from it. Couldn't you have ridden a bicycle or maybe like some fairy dust to get here?
Okay, did you just see that? Because I need a second. What you just watched is Senator Ted Cruz absolutely taking apart a law professor live in a Senate hearing, and I have so many thoughts. Before I play the full video, let me say this. I don't care where you fall politically. What we just saw is a masterclass in holding someone accountable for their own argument. This professor published a paper saying oil executives should be thrown in prison for murder, walked into a United States Senate hearing, and somehow didn't expect to get grilled on it. The Uber moment alone is worth the whole video. We're going to break all of this down. If this is your first time here, welcome. Hit subscribe, because this is exactly what we do on this channel. We watch, we think, we call it like we see it. And drop a comment below right now. Tell me your first reaction to that clip. Was it the homicide definition? Was it the Uber? Let me know. All right, let's watch the full thing.
Thank you, Senator Whitehouse. One final bit of questioning for you, Mr. Arkush. Define for this committee what homicide means.
Oh, sure. So homicide is a legal term that refers to it's essentially a blanket term for any form of unlawful killing. And an unlawful killing is causing death with a culpable mental state. Causing a death means substantially contributing to it or accelerating it. And a culpable mental state could be negligence, knowledge, recklessness.
So you wrote an article in 2023 entitled, quote, Climate Homicide, Prosecuting Big Oil for Climate Deaths. In that article, you argue that oil and gas executives could be prosecuted, not just sued, but criminally prosecuted for homicide, for murder, based on climate change. Is that right?
That's right. I mean, I would be careful with the wording because murder, again, is a technical term. And definitely we're not arguing that they could be prosecuted for first-degree murder. That's killing with, intent.
But you want to put them in prison for homicide, lock them up, treat them as criminals, put them in. Murderers people who commit homicide get put in jails with violent criminals. And your position is this is a reasonable and rational thing that we should put the people leading the energy companies in America, producing 8.5 million jobs, we should arrest them and throw them in jail. Is that correct?
It could be the case that some executives should be prosecuted in that way. Of course, you can't put a corporation in jail, so there are other remedies in that situation.
But you can put human beings in jail, and presumably you'd put the corporate officers in jail.
Yes, you can.
You'd prosecute them for murder. So don't let there be any ambiguity. And by the way, Senator Whitehouse was really eager to make clear that you're the minority witness. You're the witness he wanted. He was eager to introduce you. I'm going to go on the record as saying that is a moonbeam wacky theory that you want to prosecute people creating jobs and producing energy for murder. Let me ask you, Mr. Arkush, how did you get to the Capitol today?
So here's what I want to tell you.
How did you get to the Capitol today?
I took an Uber.
You took an Uber.
Yep.
Now, was that in an automobile?
Yes.
Did that automobile have gasoline in it?
Yes. This is very, very cute. I see where this is going.
So I'm glad you think it's cute. Under your theory, you emitted carbon emissions.
Yep.
Should you be arrested in this room right now and prosecuted for murder?
No.
Why?
That's not what the law holds.
So tell me why, because you're willing to say the guy who sold you the gasoline should be prosecuted for murder. You're the one that benefited from it. Couldn't you have ridden a bicycle or maybe some fairy dust to get here?
The guy who sold the gas and 50 years ago knew that it was going to cause globally catastrophic damage that would cause problems for humanity.
But you have exquisite knowledge of this. You were saying you were an expert. So on mens rea,
I'm not done.
You have a level of culpability because you claim that the act of getting in that car was violence, it was murder, that you should be locked up. Why do you get to violate these principles in a way that you just want to lock up the person who sold you the gas, but not the beneficiary of it?
That's your claim, not mine, because to be liable, there are a bunch of reasons, but one of them is you have to substantially contribute to the harm, to the death.
Okay,
and
so
I am
how many car rides is substantially? Is it one? Is it two? Is it 10? How many?
A single individual couldn't possibly contribute enough. The point is...
Well, what about if, say, you're a Democrat politician who
do you
flies
want me to answer
What about if you're a Democrat politician who flies private jets?
It would be helpful if you're asking the questions. Doesn't he get to answer them?
Yeah.
He gets to answer them in my time, just like he gets to answer them in your time when you are asking them.
Seems like I don't get to answer.
So what about Democrat politicians who fly private planes all the time? People like John Kerry, who say, for someone like me, a private jet is the only reasonable way to travel. John Kerry has the climate footprint of a small town in Tennessee. Would you prosecute John Kerry for murder?
So depending on how you calculate it, U.S. fossil fuel or the oil majors, private oil majors, are responsible for around half of global emissions.
My question was, would you prosecute John Kerry for murder?
Obviously not. No.
Okay, so Democrat politicians are exempted.
There is no individual...
Democrat activists are exempted.
I'm not going after people for carbon footprints. The whole thing is actually...
Well, why not, though? Under your principle, carbon is killing us. You claim it is homicide. By the way, this is a whack job theory. You teach in law school. If one of your law students wrote this on an exam, any law professor...
Okay, we are back, and honestly, I have even more to say now than I did before. Let's start from the top. Arush defines homicide himself. Unlawful killing, culpable mental state, substantially contributing to a death. He laid out his own framework. And that matters because Cruz uses that exact framework to corner him later. Cruz didn't bring his own definitions. He let the man build his own cage, and then locked the door. Now, the article. This is a law professor, someone who teaches future lawyers, who published a paper arguing oil executives should be criminally prosecuted for homicide because of climate change. Not sued, not fined, prosecuted, jailed. And he sat there and owned it. I respect that he didn't run from it. But owning a bad argument doesn't make it a good one. Here's where Cruz really lands it, though. The moment Arush says a single individual couldn't possibly contribute enough to be liable, his whole theory falls apart. He is saying that the scale of your contribution determines criminal liability. So, the guy taking the Uber? Not liable. The company that fuels the Uber? Murderer. I understand he's trying to make a legal distinction, but in plain common sense terms that starts to feel very convenient very fast. Then we get to John Kerry. And this is the cleanest punch of the whole exchange. John Kerry once said a private jet is the only reasonable way to travel, and Cruz points out the man has the carbon footprint of a small town in Tennessee. And Arush just says obviously not. He wouldn't prosecute Kerry. No framework. No explanation. Just no. So oil executives who supply the fuel go to prison. Democrat politicians who burn through it by the private jet load are completely fine. That is not a legal theory. That is a political agenda wearing a legal costume. And Cruz called it exactly that. Look, I'm not saying oil companies are perfect. There are real conversations to have about corporate accountability and climate policy. But the moment you apply your theory selectively based on who is politically convenient to target, you have lost the argument. And Cruz made sure he lost it in public. The moonbeam wacky line was a bit theatrical, sure, but honestly not wrong. Because what we watched was someone defend prosecuting people for murder, exempt himself because he took an Uber, exempt his political allies because they fly private, and still call it principled legal thinking. Cruz came in prepared, used the witness's own words, followed the logic all the way to its conclusion, and exposed the double standard sitting right at the center of it. That is what these hearings are supposed to look like. Alright, that is my full reaction. I want to hear yours. Did Arush have a point that got unfairly cornered? Or did Cruz expose something genuinely hypocritical? Comment below, let's talk about it. Like the video, share it, subscribe if you haven't, and I will see you in the next one.